going live on the last Sunday of the month. And on the last Sunday of the month, that means we have got Jim Wright, part of David Gerald. The rest of David Gerald is in GalaxyCon, where he's basking in the glow of glory. Yes. And selling books, you know. And if got to remember, in this business, it's about selling books. Okay, show us your book. Now go down and push settings and on your computer and change it to set your mirror image, and we'll actually be able to read those covers.
No, it's actually backwards. David, you have to read everything David writes, looking into the mirror.
And it makes me think I'm reading a Russian novel when I see that.
That's right. Yeah, it does look backwards.
However, so Jim, how's the weather in Florida?
We don't have weather. We have. You remember back in the 1940s, before they really knew what the other planets were like, and the early years of science fiction, where they wrote, Bradbury and Burroughs, they wrote about Venus as being like this horribly hot swamp full of rain and dinosaurs and mold. And there was a story, The Endless Rain, I think it was, Bradbury. That's Florida. It's hotter than hell here. It rains every day. I think I'm starting to mildew. So
at least you have some humidity to go with the heat.
Oh God, seriously. I ride a bike anywhere from an hour to 90 minutes every morning. I get up literally at 5 o'clock. I'm usually on the road by 5:30. It's not light out usually by the time I'm riding, and even then, it's like you're riding through hot tomato soup. And this morning, the entire town smelled like burning plastic. I don't know what. I don't know if there was a fire or if it's just the day that everybody burns leaves or what. But the entire town for the entire 90-minute ride this morning was like hot burned tomato soup. And it's just, my God, it's just miserable.
No, but look at it this way. So many people I know have always wanted to live in a science fiction story.
Yeah. I was hoping though. I wanted to live in like some kind of easy utopia, like Sam Chip Delaney's Nova. I love that world, where everybody's kind of casual and everything. The technology makes everything easy. Instead, I got Mad Max, so that's where I'm living. I had some MAGA nut in my yard yesterday. Some old guy. I thought he was some kind of silver alert thing, but I think he was just an asshole. And, big Trump signs on his truck, and out here in my yard, he drove right into my yard, some big ass truck, and then got pissed off about it when I said something to him. I don't know. That's the place I live. Guns and Trump signs. So.
Well, it was only 111 here, but it was a dry heat. Tell you what, I take them dogs for the walk in the morning, and I mean, like you, the bike early morning. If even in the early morning when we're coming home, they will stop at every speck of shade and tell me they'll be right along.
Mine don't walk in the heat. They lay over here. They lay in the bushes outside. Usually they're on the floor in my office, but that's not conducive to a good podcast. So they're laying on the porch outside of my office here on the concrete in the shade. So it's still much during the day. I spray them down. When I get done, I'll go out and water the plants. And so when I do that, and the water's good and cold from the well, I'll spray both dogs down. So
now, are your rednecks still able to get out in this heat?
I don't know. They're out all the time. You can't avoid them. So.
Yeah, it's. I got to tell you. Hey, I heard some good news. The name of the book you did, The Cities of Earth with Jeff Sturgeon, is included in one of probably the best bundles I've seen out there in a while.
Very good. That's good to hear.
Well, that's a great book, and I'm pretty proud of that story, and I know David's proud of his, and I'm sure Jeff is. That's a great book, and I'm hoping maybe he'll do a sequel because I got another story for him that I think's even better. But I really like that concept. It was a lot of fun. The flip side of it, though, is we're sitting talking about the coral heat that the northern hemisphere is under, and you're talking about a world buried in ice. So, you really got to do a mental. I got to turn the air conditioner way up in my office to be able to write those stories. So,
The joy of it. So, what are you guys working on these days?
Good
Did you ever
question.
get back on Twitter, Jim?
What's that?
Did you ever get back on Twitter?
I'm on Twitter. Yeah, I was on there. I'm on Twitter too much. I was on there for hours and hours every day. But David and I are. David spent a couple of days here last month, and we've got outline of what we think is a hell of a book, and some pretty interesting characters. And we're both doing our parts of it right now, and then we'll start mixing it together. Good God, it's already tomorrow is the next month already, so we'll start mixing it together. I think we're going to have a pretty good book for you guys when we get done with it.
Yeah, I got sidetracked. We've been doing some remodeling, so everything got cleaned out of the house, including my office, and I finally got a functioning office back. And then we had a couple birthdays. Aiden just turned 2, and he's starting to say words, real words like cookie, and I've been sidetracked for a couple 2, 3, 4 weeks, but I expect to have some serious writing time coming up before I have to leave for Worldcon. So,
Are you guys both going to be at Worldcon?
I'll be there. I plan on it unless something else. I was supposed to be there last year, and then we literally had a family emergency, literally as I was driving out of the driveway. But I'm supposed to have a hotel reservation. I got my membership. I should be there.
well, I've got a dealer's table and a hotel room, so I'll be there. I have Silicon Valley convention the week before, so that ends on a Sunday night. So Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, I'll be driving from Silicon Valley to Chicago. If the car will get over the Rocky Mountains, I'll be there.
We'll look forward to seeing you. BQ Press has a nice double table there.
Yeah, I only have to get up to the top of the Rockies. I can coast all the way down.
Right across the plains. You get a build up enough speed coming down the mountains, you can coast right across Nebraska.
Yeah, well, when you get to Kansas or Nebraska, you just stick your foot out the side of the car and use it like a scooter. It'll be fine.
Yeah. It turns out Kansas is actually flatter than a pancake. If you were to blow up a pancake to the size of Kansas, it would have more hills and valleys than Kansas. So
that is as somebody who was born in Brownell, Kansas, or Ransom, Kansas, technically.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. What I love about Kansas is you can stand there and you can look over at the Green Tower and say, that one's Bazine, that's Waukene, that's Ness City, and it's just
anywhere in Kansas you can stand on a chair and see Wichita, so it's all right.
So, are you guys now? You guys work at trying to take care of yourself. Are you guys going to be in the John Hawley 5K run?
I'm not that fast anymore. Hawley, man, that guy can move. I'm not that fast anymore. So,
but you're going to have to do it with your fist in the air.
I heard that the Josh Hawley marathon is going to be very small, very short.
Very short.
I said that with a straight face.
It's funny watching this guy, and he's defiant as hell. I think I said this on Twitter. I'm reminded of that scene at the end of Schindler's List. They've gone through all the horrible Holocaust, and at the very end, Ralph Fiennes' character, the concentration camp guard, at the end of the war, he was captured by the Allies and then remanded to Poland for trial. And at the end of that movie, there's an epilogue at the end of Schindler's List where they're going to hang him. And they hang him not right within view of the camp that he ran. And as they go to hang him, he shouts defiantly. He doesn't really shout. It's kind of half-assed, but he does the Sieg Heil and shouts out Hitler's name, and they kick the stool out and hang him. And that's when they interviewed Hawley. That's all I could think of was that, when he says, "Oh, I'm not ashamed. I'm proud of what I did." Oh yeah, somebody just kick a goddamn stool and let's get on with it. Jesus.
I mean, here's a guy gives a fist bump of support to the innocent tourists and then runs like hell from the tourists, right? Those are not tourists.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Whoa. Those weren't tourists at the White House, but
I don't know, man. I live in Florida. I've seen tourists. They may be,
Tourists wear those god awful Bermuda shorts and the Hawaiian shirts that clash, and then a hat, and they look like tourists, and sunglasses.
well, yeah. But
I don't know. It's something, It's like I said, it's all around here. What is? Oh, there's some. All of a sudden, there's stuff on my screen. Hey, but it's something to me, that we went from, and I don't know. This country's always been kind of a pain in the ass when it comes to political discourse, but even when we disagreed, a lot of times we could at least see common ground, or at least see community. Nowadays, man, honest to God, we're looking at people. We're looking at you're looking again at the 1920s and 1930s in Germany, where the dregs of civilization have all got guns. It's not, how this happened. When you're looking at how it can happen, decent Germans turned a blind eye to it, or they said, "Well, I don't agree with their methodology, but
you got like three large sections here.
There was a TV series called Holocaust with and Michael Moriarty, and I forget who else. I think Meryl Streep was in it. Great cast. And there's a line in it early on where someone says, "This is the land of Goethe and Beethoven. We would never go that way because we're much too good at people." And it's like, yeah, and here we are. We're the land of Lincoln and JFK and Buzz Aldrin and Neil. Yeah, right. We will never go that way. Yeah, any democracy is fragile. Democracy is fragile because, and we saw that in 2015, where with the Hugo Awards, is that it's a fragile system because everybody assumes everybody's going to play fair. If you have one person who's not playing fair, who's disregarding the rules, the fragility of the system, it can be broken very easily. And we saw that with the Hugo Awards in 2015 as a forerunner of what the fanatics could do. It was a warning shot. I'm not saying it's the same people, but it's the same kind of thinking.
A lot of them are the same people, but yeah, again, you're absolutely correct. You see that here. We still have people in this country who think that the other side, that the Proud Boys and the people that are currently flying Nazi flags, literally flying Nazi swastikas and Confederate flags, and who are yesterday down here at the gun store buying weapons hand over fist. They're not going to be able to pay their mortgage this month, but by God, they passed in the Senate. They're all down here spending next month's mortgage payment on more assault weapons. And we still have people in this country that think that those people can be reasoned with. We passed that, but you cannot reason with unreasonable people. And these people are fundamentally not reasonable. They are, and again, before I start seeing the endless scrolling down the side of the screen that's saying not all, not all, I got it. But increasingly, there is an element of this country that are not reasonable people, that are not functioning in reality, that are increasingly, their worldview is consists of conspiracy theories and hysteria and insanity and things that are patently untrue. Their leader is right now doing rallies where this guy, despite all evidence, even the evidence produced by his own people, still believes that there was some kind of widespread election fraud and that his rightful victory was somehow stolen from him.
Even if he doesn't believe that, it's convenient for him to say it because it winds up his base. So,
and even if he doesn't believe it, the people that he's talking to damn sure do.
They believe it. Now, let me add this. I'm not going to name any names, but several of my more progressive and liberal friends believe that we're headed towards some very serious trouble in this country, and they have bought guns and ammunition because they're a little bit concerned about the fanatics you just described. The polarization in this country is scaring people on the left side who are starting to believe maybe we can't reason with these people. Maybe we're going to have to defend ourselves against some of them.
Yeah.
On that project we're working on there, David, that one of the bits of research I did is I found out for the last 3 years, the largest increase in gun sales has been to women and people traditionally identified as liberals. They are the biggest increase.
Based on what I've seen, yes. And
here's an interesting quote for you. You know the guy that made the guns that was used at Sandy Hook?
Yeah.
He said, Uvalde says the mass shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary in 2012 drove a lot of sales. You know?
Oh, yeah. Every time there is a massacre that makes the front page, it drives gun sales. The NRA, the gun manufacturers, they count on selling guns and ammunition every time there's a massacre. I don't know why, but what my son says is the fanatics are afraid the government is going to pass a law taking away guns and ammo, so we better go run out and stock up now, shouldn't we? Right? So he thinks that's the mindset. I can't argue with that. It seems to make sense.
Well, in your home state of California, didn't you just pass a new set of laws that is treating that's allowing people to sue gun manufacturers almost like they were a 12-year-old Texas girl
Yeah, that's the law. I suspect, though, that the real reason for that law is to take it to the Supreme Court and challenge the Supreme Court's precedent on the abortion ruling. Now, I know people who are furious about that particular law because they think it doesn't make sense, and they may be right. But if it goes to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court has a contradiction on their hands, I'm going to, watch with some amusement as their heads explode.
Right. Well, again, we can talk about guns until we're blue in the face, but the part that I find fascinating is that, again, every time there's any kind of incident, it's just exactly what David said. They're all down here. I drove David when David was staying with me. I drove David past the local gun nut place here in town, and they're out here right now. They're out here. They got flags flying, and they got the parking lots overflowing. The guy did some kind of big raffle yesterday, giving away assault weapons because, by goddamn, the liberals are talking about taking away their fucking guns again. Excuse my language, but the part that I find amazing, though, this is the part I find amazing. There are times that I drive down to this place and I sit in the parking lot across the street and I watch the trucks that are pulling in here, and they're all trucks, giant trucks, and they got American flags and Confederate flags. And you look at the bumper stickers on the back of these trucks, and every one of them says, "We back the blue." They've all got one of those fake-ass magnetic ribbons on the back and tearful posts about veterans and veterans. And yet they're down there all buying those assault weapons specifically so that they can shoot down the military and the police.
And not only that, these are people who want to vote for the same. Last week, the Republicans who were ready to vote for a veterans benefits bill because they were pissed off about something else, 34 of them said, "Nah, we're not going to vote for it now." And it's like, all right, if you guys really, really want to take care of veterans, you don't back off like that. And those rednecks with the trucks and the bumper stickers, they should be furious about that. And
Right. But it's amazing. Like I said, and I think most of the people watching know that I am a veteran. I spent most of my life in the military, and I know a hell of a lot of veterans, and I know a hell of a lot of veterans that are right-wing Trump voting nut bars, and this doesn't change things for them. Oh, well, they voted to screw us over, but they had to. Because if they didn't, the liberals would get a win, and we can't have that. And we would rather have fucking cancer than give Joe Biden a win. This is literally the mindset. This is 30 years of Rush Limbaugh playing in every exchange, in every food court, and every base in America. This is Fox News for 30 goddamn years. These guys literally vote against their own. Would rather have goddamn cancer to own the
I
libs.
hope it's painful. I hope it's really painful.
And I don't. And these are guys that I knew in the military that were
Yeah.
not crazy people, that were very good at their jobs, that were reasonable folks, and that were decent Americans. And they got out of the military, and they didn't have a hell of a lot to do, and they spent their time watching news. And I could see the change in their world out. These are men and women that I knew whose job it was to make sure the rules were enforced fairly, whose job it was to stand foursquare against bigotry and hatred and discrimination and racism and all those kind of things. And they retired from the military, and a black man was elected president of the United States of America. And Fox News, the right wing lost its goddamn mind. And I could see the change in those people, in their Facebook posts, in their Twitter posts. And not all of them, but don't in chat send me the not all thanks. But again, people that I personally have known for 30 years, I could see fundamental change in their worldview when Obama was elected. These people are absolutely foursquare insane when it comes to people like Hillary Clinton, who is probably more conservative than they are. Okay, but these are grown people with 30 years of experience in the military who were absolutely furious about Benghazi. But when we sit down and we go over every line, every conspiracy theory, there was literally nothing that woman could do, and that every conspiracy theory is exactly that, nothing but bullshit.
Well,
I had to actually argue with a guy who knows better, a guy who told me flat out, she ordered the military to stand down. Really? Now, you were in the military. Tell me how the Secretary of State issues that order. How does that happen? What's the chain of command? Tell me how in the hell the Secretary of State orders the military to stand down. How does that happen? And they can't do it. These are people that know better. And yet, because Rush Limbaugh and Glenn Beck said it, they're convinced.
There's a mindset. There's a mindset that fanatics have, that you can go logically, point by point, and they might agree, okay, I'll give you that point. And then they jump to the next accusation. And then you say, and then you debunk that one, and they don't even acknowledge it. They jump to the next accusation. You debunk that one, they jump. We saw this on CompuServe, where we actually had to have legitimate discussions on CompuServe because of the way that the place was managed. And we would get the homophobes or the religious fanatics, and they'd come in with their bigotry or whatever, their bullshit or their dogma, and you would debunk one step at a time each claim, and they would ignore that you had debunked it, and they jump to the next assault, the next accusation, the next lie, the next assertion. And we realized these people cannot be reasoned with because they are so invested in being right about their fanaticism. And only once or twice did we manage to make any headway with one or two of these people, simply because they weren't there to deliberately troll us. There was a guy who was going on at length about how unfit gay people were until I started posting pictures of the little boy I adopted. And it's like, wow, man, you got some cojones. And he dropped out of the discussion because suddenly there was something he could not assimilate into the lies and the assertions. He had to go away, but he at least admitted, he admitted something. So, but for the most part, arguing with these people is a waste of time because they just jump to the next lie.
Right. Well, it is. It's again. This is again. When you look at this stuff, I was actually watching. Don't ask me why I'm doing this, but I do this for you. I do this. I sacrifice for you, dear audience. But I was watching Sarah Palin give her latest speech here the other day, and I had, goddamn it, at least the last year, I haven't had to listen to her. But I was listening to her the other day. Of course, she's running for office in Alaska, where I still have a lot of interest. In fact, my son and daughter-in-law are in Alaska right now. Their huskies are in my house, and I had forgotten. My God, I'd forgotten how painful it is to listen to that woman. And when you, and again, it's very similar to how Trump talks. It's just a series of non sequiturs. It's disconnected thoughts. It just is. It's like watching a hamster on a damn wheel. The hamster always goes with a great goddamn line. But it's just, she never finishes the sentence. Again, this is exactly like Trump. There are no commas. There are no breaks. It's just this constant jumbled stream of consciousness, and I'm not even sure that consciousness is the right word here. And if you sit down when she's done and you try to transcribe that, which if those of you that follow me online know that I do that with Trump's comments, it's the most awful, painful process. You have to keep playing the tape over and over because none of those thoughts flow in any sort of logical manner. And it's so difficult to try to make sense of how their mental process works. And what's amazing to me, of course, this works because what Trump's audience, what Palin's audience respond to is the emotional content of the words and not the words themselves. And all they hear is you're right, you're victimized, you're they're stealing your history, they're stealing your country, they're changing the world, they're taking away your rights. And that's what they hear. They don't. And when you sit down and you say, look, let's go over this. Let's go over what Trump said. Let's go over what Palin said. Let's go over this piece by piece. None of it makes any sense. It makes sense to them. And that's why those politicians are so popular, is because they don't hear the words. They're not used to thinking logically or in a linear fashion or in any kind of depth. What they hear is what they want to hear. You're a victim. You're being put upon. People are stealing your country away from you. And
I was gonna try.
You got a hell of a microphone, David. I swear to God, man, I can hear everybody at that convention.
I will mute myself. I did want to say something, though. Thought just went out of my head.
No, I spent all my money on like photo ops and autographs.
Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and Louis Gohmert and the ones who are saying the really stupid stuff. They're a distraction, and they're a necessary distraction, because while we're getting all upset or distracted or saying, oh, look at the stupid thing that the stupid person just did, we're not looking. It's like the magician is waving the cloth over here, and your eye follows the moving cloth, and you're not noticing that the other hand is palming the whatever. And so while Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying all this crap, you're not noticing where they're picking your pocket with their other hand. So
right.
Yeah, they serve a purpose. The stupid politicians serve a purpose, in that they're necessary distractions from the real crimes.
Yeah.
So I'm going to mute myself again. So,
Hey, can I ask you two question here about the Secret Service?
If you
You have any?
You can ask.
A crime was committed. Those texts were not supposed to be deleted. It violates federal law, and people are going to jail. If we have an honest government left, people are going to jail for that.
Well, it's again, it's exactly what David said. But if you look at the tech side of it, if you are familiar with how that technology works, deleting those texts is almost impossible to do at that depth accidentally. I mean, it's a communication system that is designed to maintain communications in multiple places, or at least portions of those conversations. And so even if the servers themselves are deleted, devices that you're holding in your hand contain records, and those records were deleted. And so when you say, and I used to do this for a living. I mean, I spent most of my life in the field of electronics intelligence, and I will also say the state of the art has advanced considerably since then. But again, you have information stored in multiple locations on multiple separate diverse devices. And so for those conversations to be like, you could say, we're going through an upgrade, accidentally deleted a drive, sorry about that, but the information can be recovered. It's just going to take more work. But the answer is the information was deleted and it cannot be recovered. Well, that's not an accident, because there's no way that you can delete all of that information from those separate devices from multiple storage locations across an entire communications platform and not be able to recover it unless that's on purpose. And so you have people in that agency who looked at what happened on January 6th and said, we can't let anybody, the authorities, notice what they didn't do, okay? Notice what they didn't do. They didn't say, listen, we can't hand over this information because it's so classified that it reveals how we keep the president and the members of government safe. And so if we reveal this, we compromise the safety of the U.S. government. They didn't say that. They said, we erased it. Sorry. They didn't even try to make a national security excuse. So whatever information was erased was so damning to somebody, whether it was Trump or whether it was Republicans or whether it was the Secret Service itself. It's not, I'm not saying the Secret Service is in on it. They could very well have been talking shit about the president behind his back. And if that stuff comes out, no matter who the president is, it's unprofessional and makes them look bad. That could be what happened. Or they could have been part of the process, or they could have been so phenomenally incompetent that, again, the safety of the government, we don't know. The answer is, no matter what, it's all speculation. I'm sitting here idly speculating on what this information means. But when you do this kind of, let me back up to my own professional background. In the world of electronic intelligence, there are two types of electronic intelligence. There's what's called signals intelligence, and there's what's called traffic intelligence or traffic analysis. Traffic analysis is when you actually look at the actual information being conveyed, the conversations, which is what most people think about when they think about intelligence work. But a lot of electronic intelligence is, it's impossible to read those conversations. They might be encrypted or whatever the process is, and you can't actually read the actual words. But you can tell something about the adversary and what he's up to by looking at the signals themselves. Who is communicating with who, for example? If this agency is communicating with this entity in the field, then you know something, even if you don't know what was said. In this case, all that information was deleted. We don't know what was actually said. We can't do traffic analysis on text that you're not allowed to look at. And it's impossible to do signals analysis in the fact that you don't know who was communicating with who, again, because this information has been deleted. But you can still derive intelligence and information from the situation that it exists. And that information is that somebody fairly far up in the chain of command decided that information was so damning to the United States itself or to the Secret Service itself that they're willing to risk going to prison and giving their agency a black eye to get rid of it. That's what it's telling you. Now, exactly what that embarrassment is, I can't tell you. I can speculate all day. So can you. We can all do that. What I know for sure is that that information must have been so damning that they were willing to risk prison to hide it. Because whatever bullshit prison term or jail sentence or slap on the wrist they get is going to be orders of magnitude less than what would happen is if that information became public. And the other side of it is that order had to come from somewhere pretty far up the chain of command. One technician couldn't have done that. One guy. It would have required people within the agency to do it. And because that information is carried on civilian communications backbones, it would have had to been done by people that are cleared, that work for AT&T or whoever the hell is contracted to do this stuff. There are multiple people, and there's no goddamn contractor in the world that's going to do that on his own.
Let me say this. The more people who know a secret, the harder it is to keep a secret.
It's going to come out eventually.
It's going to come out, and there's going to be an uproar. People are going to jail. People are going to jail.
The problem with it is that when it does come out, David, without the hard data, without the actual transcripts, then it's going to be just like the agent who said, "Yeah, Trump grabbed the steering wheel." Well,
it'll be a he said, she said.
Maybe he didn't. And it's a problem. And again, you have an agency that has a vested interest in not embarrassing itself.
Well, I know I got
that's true of any organization.
Well, yeah, sure, absolutely.
Cover your ass. The first rule of any organization is cover your ass.
I would say, except for Josh Hawley, who apparently enjoys embarrassing himself, but on it, just saying.
Well, my speculation on this one is the communications that were probably coming down to Pence's Secret Service. That is basically, if we can get him out of the Capitol, we can stop the ballot count.
And again, and that very well may be true, but again, it's all idle speculation. We can all speculate all day. I strongly suspect that, given my experience with this sort of thing, that it's probably not a horrible, massive conspiracy. It is probably the normal, large agency, out of their depth, didn't anticipate the danger and the situation that the president and the people they're supposed to be protecting were in. And what those transcripts probably show is chaos, confusion, and incompetence. It would probably be my guess.
I would agree with that. Somebody I know who has some information says that the Secret Service absolutely despises Trump. So I think the most logical is that the agency was thrown into chaos by the events that they did not prepare for, couldn't predict, and didn't know absolutely how to respond to a situation that was not normal. Or come on, it was an attempt to overthrow the government of the United States, and nobody had gamed it out. Nobody had figured what's going to happen on January 6th. And yet there were so many warning signs. The FBI should have known. The Secret Service should have known. Come on. They were practically saying, guess what? We're going to have a rally on January 6th, and they were talking about, they were saying, let's get the Proud Boys in, and they're here with guns. Okay, yeah, you got to know there's trouble brewing. And they were there were orders coming down to keep the police and the National Guard from coming into Washington, D.C. Somebody had to know that there was some trouble,
Well, again, this is more of the same. We had all the data that we needed, all of the intel to predict 9/11, and yet you had agencies I spent my entire career working inside the U.S. intelligence service, and there's a lot of damn good people, a lot of damn dedicated people. The people that are on the pavement, they're doing the job every day. Those people are busting their ass. They give a shit about the United States. They don't care about politics. They care about making sure that they live up to their duty. But those agencies, by definition, once you get past the operations level, you get up to the people that are running things. By definition, those are political agencies because the people that run them are political appointees, and they're nowadays often used to beat other people above the head and shoulders. And there was a real fundamental change of rudder after 9/11 and the passing of things like the Patriot Act and especially the Protect America Act, where we began to. There's always a danger when you use this kind of authority against your own people, and you see this in the police department every day. As we increasingly militarize the police department, you increasingly get the us and them mentality. You're either one of us or you're one of the sheep. That's how it works. And you very much see that in large police agencies. Well, you didn't see a lot of that for a significant fraction of my career. If you work in three-letter agencies, especially one that is based out of Fort Meade, you were hammered every single day of your career, starting from day one, that we did not use our tools against Americans, ever. And if you tried that shit, you were going to go to jail. And I know people that happened to, all right? And we were very careful about that. And it was hammered into your head every day. I will not say that those agencies are pure or that kind of nonsense, but there were certain rules that we all agreed to, and those was one of them. After 9/11, that changed, and that change very much causes, again, that same sort of us and them mentality. There are those of us that are fighting the fight, and there are the sheep, and that's the danger of things like,
Jim,
the Patriot Act, where when you start doing things like warrantless wiretappings, then what happens is that intelligence becomes a self-licking ice cream cone. Intelligence should always be driven by requirements, and those requirements should always be vetted by external agencies. In other words, you don't just collect information to collect information. There has to be a reason for it. And not only that, but the objectives that drive that collection have got to be measured at the end to determine whether they're effective or not, and whether or not they obey the rules. The Patriot Act, in large part, removed a lot of those safeties. And you wound up very much with the kind of intelligence agencies that operated in the 60s and 70s. And because of the abuses that happened then, when things like the FBI were used against the civil rights movement, when the National Security Agency was used against certain political parties during the Nixon administration, that's where those original safeguards, those very rigid safeguards, the ones that we all took very much to heart, that's where they came from. But after 9/11, a lot of those safeties were removed. And the problem with that kind of thing is that the rot doesn't happen right away. It becomes evolutionary. And now we are 2 generations beyond the removal of those safeties, and those agencies now tend to operate as self-licking ice cream cones. They generate their own requirements, and that is always a massive danger within the intelligence community.
Let me say this. 20 years ago, when my son said he hated the police, he was getting pulled over. Because local officer Wilkins would, sees this kid driving a car, he's going to pull him over. Sean was a teenager. Today, you ask me about the police, I don't trust them. Sean and I have had this conversation. I do not trust our local police, and as far as I'm concerned, the Hemet police, or Hemet, I don't know how to pronounce, police department is the most corrupt in California, if not in the world. They cannot, it's like we won't even go near Hemet because of the corruption of that That police department is so corrupt, no other police department in the state will cooperate with them or call them for backup. That's how awful they are. And we just have monitored what's going on in our own state, and we've decided, cops knock on the door, it's like come back with a warrant. The welcome mat says come back with a warrant, because we don't trust our own police force anymore. That's
well, you know where I live, David. You were here.
Yeah,
you know what my sheriff's like. You know what my sheriff's like.
Yeah, no, Sean was telling me, Dad, you're driving through redneck country. And I said, it's all right, Sean. All those acting lessons didn't go to know what, I paid attention in acting classes. I think I can handle myself. I just know how to talk to these people. I just say, yes, sir, no, sir. I don't know, sir.
For those of you who don't know, I live in Santa Rosa County in the Panhandle of Florida, and the sheriff here is a constitutional sheriff who, when in a town right next to where I live, which is part of this county, they saw there was a father and son who saw a black man in the neighborhood they thought might have been breaking into houses, and he may have been. And they pulled out their guns and started shooting. And when they interviewed the sheriff after this incident, he said, "Oh, that's great. We commend them. In fact, this is a Second Amendment sanctuary, and if you see somebody in your neighborhood that you're suspicious of, save us the trouble, save your tax dollars, and take care of it yourself." That's where I
Yeah.
And again, the guy that's the local councilman ran for office here by standing on the porch of his house with an AR-15 in the TV commercial and talking about how he was going to keep us safe from black people. And now his wife's running for office.
It was just so insane that when you drive these thoughts out of my head, you quote this insanity, and I'm so busy going, oh my God.
The audience should say they didn't know you could act.
It wasn't. It'll come back to me, or it won't. I'm getting old. I'm getting too old for this. We have Sean and I. We're talking, and Elise. We're going to move out of California. We have business to take care of. We have to finish fixing the house to make it saleable. But we're talking, we've got to go someplace where if trouble breaks out, we're out of the crossfire. That's because I have too many friends who think we are headed towards some kind of civil war, not an uprising or revolution, but that there's some serious troubles ahead because of these fanatics with guns. Yeah. And they keep arming themselves. As you point out, they'd rather buy a gun than take care of their kids' teeth. So,
And
I gotta say, David, I'm looking forward to your help.
Well, we actually, even if there wasn't this trouble brewing, which I don't, maybe we'll be lucky and we'll dodge the bullet. You should pardon the expression, but we want to. LA has gotten too crowded. There's it feels like there's 100 million people in Los Angeles County. I know it's less than that, but it feels like it. The traffic, and I don't want to sound like a Republican, but the homeless problem has gotten pretty bad because the restrictions on what the law can do in LA County, they can't clean up the squatters. And so we get in Orange County and Ventura County, they have much stricter regulations. So the homeless come into LA County, and we have a serious homeless problem with people camping on the streets. And there's a place just 4 or 5 blocks from us called the Alec Trebek Center for the Homeless, and the locals call it the Cartel House because the homeless they gather there and they smoke meth on the streets. And it's not a homeless shelter as much as it's a center for criminal elements. And I know that makes me sound like a Republican. I feel bad for the homeless because they're mentally ill. A lot of them are veterans who haven't been taken care of. There's a lot of people who need serious professional help. But I don't want them roaming the street. We can't take the baby for a walk because the neighborhood smells like piss. It's we're torn between we pay for a safe place to live, and we don't have it anymore. It's we're in the middle of an economic breakdown.
Right. Well, and again, this is like everything else in this country. Again, there's only one answer here, and again, this is a subset of a larger issue. I mean, you watch Trump. I probably a lot of you don't anymore. But you pay me to do it, so I do. And I watched Trump's speech the other day about his solution for the homeless, and his idea was, I think somebody made a little bit about this here. I'll do a piece on it here probably next week, but Trump's idea was we take cheap land around the cities. And I'm like, first of all, are you a real estate agent with cheap land around the cities? Where the fuck is that? Help me out here, okay? Because, wow. Now, again, this is a guy who...
Barstow, 40 miles east of Barstow. There is.
I've been to Barstow.
It's very hot.
Yeah, I've been to Barstow. It's hot there. I camped there in the desert. But I trained out there not too far away from the secret military base. Anyway, his whole bit was we take land. And again, this is a guy who thinks in terms of, what property costs in downtown Manhattan as opposed to, the suburbs, I guess. And we build tent cities, and it's a big, beautiful tents that we can do in one day. Thousands. He literally said, and I quote, thousands and thousands of high-quality tents that we can do in one day. Now, again, this guy has.
Well, you got to go to Dick's Sporting Goods to get them.
I guess. I don't know. But again, his idea was instant tent camps. Now, I will tell you that I have been in countries and places in the world where thousands and thousands of people live in thousands and thousands of tents. And I will tell you that is not a solution in any fashion whatsoever. And all you've done is take, and they did it here in Pensacola, and we're paying the cost of it now. Where in Pensacola, used to be, if you've ever been to Pensacola, especially if you were in Pensacola here in the 80s, downtown, the 70s and 80s, downtown, down by the water, was this rundown, horrible mess. It was old cotton warehouses that had rotted, and it was all burned out buildings, and it was all homeless people and drugs and that sort of thing. And then Ivan happened, the big hurricane, Cat 5 hurricane, wiped out, hold on, a whole shitload of money. Decided to renovate downtown, and it did a hell of a job. Downtown looks like kind of a pocket New Orleans. It's all wrought iron. It's very beautiful. Part of that process of gentrification was they rounded up all homeless people and moved them about 4 miles up the hill to another part of town, which of course immediately caused everybody to move the hell out of that part of town, and of course that part of the town immediately became the exact same problem they had downtown. They didn't solve the homeless problem. They just made it somebody else's problem. And this is exactly what Trump's solution was, and which is a subset of a larger part of America, which is we're not going to fix the problem. We're just going to make it somebody else's problem. Right?
Yeah.
And again, ultimately, and I hear a lot of people left, right, bitching about the homeless problem. And it is a problem in this country. It's a big problem. No, we had a homeless problem in Anchorage, though winter tends to solve that. It's horrifying. In Anchorage, they literally rounded all the homeless people up and put them in a tent camp out with the bears. And literally, there are bears in this camp. I mean, that's what they did. And they made it illegal to give people money on the streets. And it wasn't because they give a shit about homeless people, most of which in downtown Anchorage are Native Alaskans, but it was because they were afraid that it made Anchorage look bad for the tourists. And it's actually, and again, we go around and there are variations of this in every city and every town across America. And the bottom line here is you can keep rounding up homeless people and putting them in camps somewhere else, but you're not solving the problem, you're just making it worse. Ultimately, if you really want to do something about homeless in America, then we're going to have to face the reason why people are homeless. And it's drug addiction, it's mental illness, it's alcoholism, it's economic factors. It's not simple. It's not one size fits all. There are many, many problems. And there's not one causal effect. There's not one guy that started it all. As much as I'd love to blame Ronald Reagan, It's a massive, complex, hideously complicated problem that will require billions of dollars and people who honestly want to face the problem head on and actually solve this problem and not just make it somebody else's problem. And in America, I don't know that we have that kind of will anymore, if we ever did. We don't seem to have much of a will as a public and as a nation to do big projects, to do where we, again, again, you have half this country that's convinced that any kind of building of society is horrible socialism or some goddamn thing another word that they don't even know what it means. But again, literally, the same people that were cheering Trump's "let's round them all up, put them in tents" solution are the same people who every day write me hate mail about communism and socialism and big government. And yet, if you listen to Trump's speech, it was round up all the homeless people. We take some land from the owners at the edge of town. We build these big tent camps. And then we send in doctors and lawyers and we build bathrooms. And I'm like, but can you hear the words coming out of your mouth? So your solution is camps run by the government and we provide food, shelter, clothing. Well, shit, man. And people are cheering him. He had a whole audience. They were all out here and what a great idea. I don't know.
If Joe Biden were to suggest that, they would be up in arms protesting. This is
McCarthy be bleeding. Oh yeah, goddamn, it'd be the end of the world. Oh yeah. Oh my God, socialism. Oh, for Christ's sake. I don't know. Oh, hey, I'm gonna have to click off here. I have a big pen sale today. Hey, you guys are out there watching my pens. I got a huge sale today. A bunch of new prints on my store. The sale goes live here in 3 minutes. That's all I'm gonna say about it. Have a nice day.
All right.
I click that button. You talk for a while, David.
Well, all I have books for sale, but I'm not at home yet. So when I get back, August 5th, I'll have a book sale on my Facebook page. And I'll put some stuff up for auction on eBay. So that'll be next week or so. Just check in with me on Facebook. But I have a Patreon page, and a lot of stuff has been preloaded. A lot of interesting stuff has gone up on my Patreon page. And when I get home, I will be posting more stories. My goal is to have a short story posted every Friday. So
now, David.
Yeah.
For those of the viewers here who don't know what a Patreon page is.
Oh, yeah. Patreon is www.patreon.com. And basically, you become a patron of the arts. If there's a writer or a creative person, a songwriter, an actor that you want to have a relationship with, an online relationship, you can subscribe to their page for $1 a month, $3 a month, $25 a month, whatever they're charging. And they have different tiers, different levels of subscription. There's some free stuff. There's some stuff you pay for. There's some very exclusive stuff. Adam Troy Castro has a great page where he talks about movies. Patricia Elrod, Tom Smith, Daniel Keys Moran. It's worth checking out to see who has a Patreon page to subscribe, because it's like getting a regular magazine of stuff from your favorite people. And so please check out mine, www.patreon.com/David Gerald, and see what you can see.
I'm just kind of
I recommend it. Not just me. There's lots of good people on Patreon. And
I'm one of them.
Yeah, thank you. And Jim, and don't forget, and Jim has Stone Kettle Station, which is his blog, he's got 100 million followers and subscribers, and if he ever unleashes the flying monkeys, we're all in trouble. But I really love what Jim has to say. You're a little long-winded sometimes, Jim. Sometimes I just skim to get to the point. But
Right.
Jim is so right on with it's like I can hear him talking when I read his essays, his rants, and it's just great fun. It's just great
The
fun.
problem
Well,
is
more than that.
nowadays, my rants are liable to be just 2,000 words to be the same effort over and over again because this is the world that we live in. I literally had somebody yesterday I said something on Twitter, and I don't remember what the hell it was, show up and vote or something. And this person, I don't know where the hell this person came from, but I got this 5-tweet, screed about, well, where the hell have you been? How come you haven't been telling people all along? Where were you back in 2016 when this was? I'm like, what the fuck? You're shitting me, man. I'm like, oh, just don't move. Let me call up everything that I wrote. Millions of words. Some days it's so goddamn discouraging. People say, well, if only, where were you back in 2016? How come you didn't tell us? I'm like, literally, I wrote 4 million words that year. Okay.
I have to admit,
18 hours a day.
I have to admit,
where are you, man?
I have to admit, I never took Trump's candidacy seriously. I thought he was just a joke, and I went into a deep, deep depression because I never predicted how serious the situation was. So I appreciate that you were there because I missed it. I mean, I'm way too. My son balls me out. He says, "Dad, you're way too optimistic. This world does not have a place for optimism anymore."
Are
It's
you
like,
literally
I cannot
saying?
give up.
Are we literally sitting here saying that David Gerald is more optimistic than you're right? Holy shit, man! That is not where I thought today was going to go.
My son thinks I'm too hopeful. He says, "Dad,
That's
you
right.
grew up in a different world than I did." And I said, "You know what? You might be right. I might be missing something." And it's a very depressing thing to think about.
What you're saying is, we're joking about it, but the other side of it, though, that's the true tragedy. Because you and I lived through the goddamn Cold War. We're sitting here, we're all the same, roughly the same age, and we lived through the goddamn Cold War. I mean, ducking cover drills. We thought the world was going to end every day. I mean, literally, when I was growing up, every single goddamn day, we didn't have the internet, but you would go in, my dad would go in, turn on the news every evening, and it would be some horrible goddamn thing, man. The end of the world every single fucking day. Alvin Toffler, Future Shock.
Let me tell you this. Let me tell you this. I do not want to be one of those good Germans who said, this is the land of Goethe and Beethoven. We would never go that way. Right. You know what? They did. And I don't want to be that. I don't want America to go that way.
Right. Well, it's like you said, though, every damn day growing up, it was some horrible goddamn thing. I can remember to this day those scenes as we left Vietnam in shame, and they were pushing the helicopters off the carrier landing ship so that the new airplane would land on them. And, what we call the Great Malaise there at the end of the 70s, that kind of thing. And then somehow, after all those, after Nixon and Watergate and the civil rights struggle and the riots in the 60s and the drugs in the 70s and the economic depression and OPEC oil embargo and all that crap, which was the background of my life growing up, somehow we got to the end of the 90s and the Soviet Union collapsed, right? And I remember to this day when they turned the doomsday clock back, when nuclear war stopped being this thing that was hanging over our heads every single goddamn day. And then all of a sudden one day, we're flying into space on Russian rockets, building a space station together. And for a minute there, a couple of years, and I actually wrote about it. I actually went back and read this like you dumbass when I wrote this. I actually was hopeful for the future that, holy shit, man, we made it. We made it. Somehow we made it through the Cold War, and we didn't wipe ourselves out as a species. We didn't bomb ourselves back to the Stone Age. We're not living in some mutant-infested nuclear wasteland. The Soviet Union collapsed. Communism, for all intents and purposes, is we're building space stations. We're going to the stars with people that used to be our enemies. and then for a while, just for a couple of minutes there, the world was a better place, and we'd step back from the edge. And I'll be goddamned if you don't have people all over the world, in this country especially, but all over the world, Vladimir Putin, the sons of bitches on the right of this country, they're just goddamn determined to push us right back to the edge again, so that instead of our kids growing up in a world that's optimistic and hopeful, they're going to grow up in the same fucking world that we had to grow up in.
I feel like Charlton Heston on the beach at the end of Planet of the Apes. That you're looking at the Statue of Liberty and saying, "God damn you bastards! You did it! You blew it up!"
You blew it up. Exactly, you know. But I mentioned that before you come in line, Bob had mentioned with science fiction, and I'm reminded of Jerry Pournelle. And Jerry, I got mixed feelings about Jerry. I liked his stuff. He was very much a conservative. And the only interaction that he and I had was he called me an arse one day, and he wrote me a letter, called me an arse. So he did later write me a better letter. But Jerry originally had written a whole series of books called Code of Meme about the United States and the Soviet Union forming this world globing government, and then building this interstellar empire based on it. And then somewhere after the Soviet Union collapsed, of course, all of his stuff was suddenly outdated. And so when he wrote later stuff, they retconned it to say that the Soviet Union collapsed, but the Russian Empire was reconstituted. And I'm sitting here watching Russian politicians talking about exactly that.
Yeah,
and I'm thinking, holy shit! You know, if only Jerry. I don't know. I don't know if it would be terrible if Jerry had lived to see it, or a blessing that he did. I don't know, but goddamn, man, suddenly we have a very strong political movement in not just America, but in England and in Russia, that is determined to push our ass right back to the goddamn brink again. Instead of building a world that our kids grew up in, where they didn't have to grow up in the same damn world that we did. You know, it's horrifying to me. You know, it's horrifying to me that we're going to wind up, that our kids are going to wind up right back in the same goddamn fear every day that some madman is going to put a finger on a button.
Every generation has to create a commitment to peace. Otherwise, the warmongers take over. Every generation has to recreate the commitment to peace. My son is absolutely committed, but he says, I'm going to take care of my family first because the rest of it is too big. And I think that's where people are feeling frustrated. And I said, he says, how do we change it? I say, we get enough people to vote. He says, my vote doesn't matter. I say, yeah, it does. It does. Enough snowflakes can create an avalanche.
Right.
But, I can, the thing is I know what the thinking of the 1% is. You keep the working class desperate, and they don't have time to organize. They don't have time to protest. They won't have time to march and hit the streets. But they will have time to build guillotines. So, there is hope there. The French Revolution is a great model for what happens when the aristocracy stops paying attention to the economy of the nation.
Yeah, and I'm watching the comments scroll to the side. We're about 10 minutes past, Bob. Are you gonna stop us? Or are you gonna do your usual?
No, you better
thing?
Stop us, Bob, because I got to go pee.
Okay. Well, and by the way, I just want to know your hair does look fine.
No, thank you. It's just I've got this whole mirror thing going on. It's like, and I've got this one hair sticking up that's driving me crazy. That's all.
Speaking of, I'll tell you a funny story. My David met my wife here when he stayed with us. My wife has very long hair. Well, it's probably not too long for a normal person, but my wife is very short. But she has hair that goes
way
nearly
down
to the ground. And she and I were in a restaurant out in Fairhope, Alabama here a week ago, and the girl that was waiting on us said to her, and we do this everywhere we go. The girl said, you're amazing hair. They talk 10 minutes about hair, and I was I was looking at my phone or something, and as the girl went to walk away, she stopped and she turned around and she looked right at me, at my short military haircut, and said, "You have very nice hair too, sir." And then she walked off. And so, yeah,
All right, enough about my hair. Enough about Jim's hair. Becky has much better hair. She's not here.
That's right.
So, anyway, listen, it's time. We got to call it.
I know we do because David's got to go. But here, let me make my obligatory announcements here that we have got 2 new books coming out from BQ Press here in the next 2 weeks. One of them is the Protest Diaries. And that one grew out of the fact that you may remember, the guys, when a former Navy officer went down, walked over to some cops that were standing there at the Portland protests and said, basically, you don't need to be doing this. I mean, and so their response was to this unarmed Navy retired officer was they beat the crap out of him.
It was a chief, I think, senior chief, retired senior chief.
I thought he was an officer.
Retired senior chief. He's on Twitter. Anyway, go ahead. Keep going.
Anyway, that moment is what inspired the Protest Diaries. It's a book full of stories from the protests across the country over time. They were throwing people in prison for years protesting World War I. The lunch counter protests that was necessary to get people able to go eat. All of these kinds of things shaped America in big ways. And so this is a collection of stories, essays written by some people who were there, been there, or about some of the people who shaped the country by their willingness to go stand on the streets. So, like David said, if you don't have time to go protest or support the protesters, you may find yourself having time to build guillotines and help build internment camps where they don't give the people tents. So that book is a kind of important book in my world.
Might have been an internment camp,
And then the second one is called Alternative Holidays. It is a look at holidays as only science fiction writers can look at holidays. When Santa Claus is replaced by drones that get their programs wrong. Yeah. But I've done something that I've not been able to do before. Now that I'm retired, I'm actually able to put time and money into BQ Press. We're having professional covers.
Hey.
I know. Hey, it's got to happen. And we're going to see, where's your next public appearance, David?
There's a Silicon Valley Con in San Jose the last week in August, and then a week after that, Chai Con, which is the World Science Fiction Convention in Chicago. And after that, probably Lost Con Thanksgiving weekend in Los Angeles, and then sometime in December, there is a Galaxy Con in Columbus, Ohio. So that's all I'm scheduled for, and after that, I'm hoping to put aside enough money to go to Glasgow for the Glasgow Worldcon. I'll skip the one in China, but Glasgow, Vince Doherty is the con chair, and he is a great guy. He's an old friend, and he always puts on a spectacular Worldcon, and it'll be a great chance for me to spend some time in London and go across the channel to Paris. For
you can't drive there, though, right?
I know. I'll swim.
Buy a boat.
I don't know. I'll figure something out. If I have to get on, if I have to get on an airplane, I will. But they'll be dragging me onto the conference.
Well, we'll rent a boat. I know a little something about operating boats. We'll rent a boat.
You know what? I would sail. I would sail across the Atlantic because it's something I've never done.
Well, I bet you
Across the
could
Atlantic a
find
couple
something.
times. I think
As
we can
long as
manage it.
as long as I don't have to row, I will go with you. I'm not rowing.
No problem. So now let's make sure ShyCon is what's the dates on that? I think August 26th.
First week in September.
First week in September.
Yeah, and I'll be there with a double table full of books by these guys.
I'll be there.
Or not by, but they've been
I'll
part
be
of
there
it.
with a table full of books and scripts and tribbles and
Well,
I'll be there with a table full of bad attitude. That's what I'll be.
All righty. So what kind of scotch should I have hidden under the table?
I'm more of an Irish whiskey kind of guy than Scotch, but if you're buying, I'll drink whatever the hell it is. I don't. I'll drink wine spritzers if you're buying. I don't care.
Oh, hey, Jim, I got to tell you, Sean loved that pecan whiskey that you gave me the bottle of. We sip it, we sit around. He said, "Oh my God, he was skeptical, and then he tasted it and said, "Oh, this is wonderful." So we've had a great time with it. Yeah.
Now, David,
I was asking. When David was here, I offered him some different whiskeys, and he's now become a fan of. For those of you who don't know, the William Wolf Distillery, and specifically, they make a variety of whiskeys. And I'm not a fan of flavored whiskeys, but they make something that's flavored whiskey. It is.
It's very sweet. It's like drinking port or sherry. It's very sweet.
Amazing.
It's wonderful.
If you get a chance to try William Wolf's pecan whiskey, you should do it. Absolutely. Even if you don't like whiskey, I highly recommend it.
I might bring, if we have any left, I might bring that bottle to ShyCon.
Yeah, I'll bring a bottle. I'll bring a bottle for the both of you.
Oh, okay, even better.
Okay. Is Jameson's any good?
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
I can drink Jameson. But when I was living in Dublin, we had to drink Paddy's Fine Irish Whiskey. Jameson's was not the right one.
Oh,
they're very serious about their booze. Anyway, listen, I got to run.
I know. Okay, thank you, guys. It's been. What is this?
There it is.
This is 18-year-old Jameson's that I've been waiting. But David and I published this goddamn book. I'll open it. I'll have him out here. We'll open this.
Yeah, we will have. We'll do it at a Worldcon. So
Okay.
maybe Glasgow. All right.
Guys,
Oh yeah.
Go sell some more books, okay?
All right.
Absolutely.
All right.